Welcome to the presentation about energy systems within a permaculture design. We all use energy, so let's reduce our needs and find natural solutions. Energy meets many of our needs, from the basic needs of health to keep us nourished and comfortable, and then the housing that we need to keep us safe, and communication and transport to keep us connected with others. The energy that we use to stay healthy includes nutrition, so the washing, cooking and preservation of food and drinks, and hygiene, such as washing our body and clothes and sanitation, and exercise, relaxation and sleep. For the comfort, we need adequate light, shelter, climate control, doesn't have to be electronic, but there is still some climate control, and security. But for the social aspects, we use energy in communication, transport, information, entertainment, work, and trade. Let's unpack nutrition. We use energy with planting and harvesting of food, washing and cooking, storage of food, and preservation, especially if you live in cool climates where fresh food is not available through winter. Some foods are energy intensive. To prepare the land, plant it out, water it, and weed it, and then harvest and store the food. There are low energy food production systems, such as companion planting, food forestry, and the use of perennials. Perennial plants include the starchy banana called plantain, yams, acorns, and perennial beans. There are many perennial food plants. Surface water irrigation systems have been used for 10,000 years. In the Northern Hemisphere, we would find records of irrigation systems from about 6,000 years BC. In Australia, we find irrigation systems and fish traps as old as 9 to 15,000 years BC. By creating an artificial climate, farms are more efficient and so use less energy. The classic technologies are glass houses, but there are also older techniques such as compost heaps, wallopinis, and cloches. Cooking uses energy, and the reason why we cook is because many plants have bitter defense mechanisms. But over the thousands of years of seed saving, humans have been able to select plant varieties that can be eaten raw. And sometimes the raw foods are more nutritious. But often foods become more nutritious when they are warmed, soaked, blended, or fermented. To reduce our energy needs for cooking, there are many different alternative technologies now, including these solar cookers. This stove in Cuba was burning heritage timbers that were once cut from a huge tree, probably from another country like Brazil, or maybe even planks of wood from Spain. Many cooktops of Latin America heat the thermal mass around them, and few have a door to keep the heat in, so the efficiency of these cooktops is very low. Compare that to this kung in China. There are about 800 million kungs, traditional stovetops in China, and it can use waste materials like these corn husks to fuel the stove. And see how there's a door on the stove and there's a large lid on the embedded wok above. My friend Flo built a rocket stove for Gao. It's like a Brazilian cooktop, but far more efficient. Smaller ovens are more efficient. They use less energy to heat the smaller amount of space. Have you heard the saying that a watched pot never boils? I think it refers to the fact that you need to put a lid on it. By putting lids and doors on things, we reduce the airflow, and as you know, as air flows, it cools down. In the Western world, most people have an oven that's big enough to baste a turkey once a year, And they have a fridge that's big enough to take all the food for a party once or twice a year. But the most energy efficient storage is insulated and small. The alternatives to refrigeration include drying, cool cellars, ferments, pickles, jams and alcohol. On the right-hand side here is a special type of pot, 2 pots with sand in between. Moist sand so it can stay cool, and you put a lid on that. Here's a giant version of that evaporative cooler I showed you. This is big enough for people to go inside. Drying foods, making ferments, pickling, making jam or brewing foods all require some energy. The reason why we do this is not just to be able to preserve the food, but it can increase the nutritional value of the food or make it more palatable. It also allows us to transport goods to the other side of the world, and we can use these foods any time of the year. Most food is dried. Drying foods can cost a lot of energy, but the common alternative is not the healthiest. It usually uses sugar. In fact, sugar is the biggest food commodity worldwide. It is both a food and a preservative. Yet few people in the Western world have ever tasted fresh sugar cane. Sugar cane is commonly added to foods such as tomato sauce, bread, and breakfast cereals. It's the easiest way to preserve food. The next easiest way is alcohol. Beyond that, we have ferments like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, and kefir. These ferments increase the nutritional availability of foods and supply good gut bacteria. They aren't hard to make once you learn how. Let's unpack hygiene for a minute. Bathing, showering, saunas and scrubs. In most situations, people prefer to wash with warm water. Warm water allows the soap and the oils in our skin to dissolve more easily. In the Western world, tap water is delivered by pumps and gravity. It uses hydraulic energy. Another aspect of energy use for our health includes medicine. Some vital medicinal procedures, like X-rays and MRIs, require a lot of energy. So instead of burning our last remaining fossil fuels or using nuclear power, we need to reserve these energy sources for the most important uses. Exercise is a need. It helps to curb the need for medicine. A lifestyle that is active with foods that are nutritious produces more and reduces energy costs. Imagine if we could harness the energy of all the people at the gym. Now let's unpack the energy we use to stay comfortable. We use light, shelter, climate control and security. Natural light is the best form of lighting. If your home is dark during the day, you need to modify it rather than turn on the light. This Liter of Light project is a project that has provided free lighting to millions of homes around the world. A lot of energy is used to create shelter. We clear the land, we dig foundations, we build the structure, and then we maintain it. Smaller homes require less maintenance. This mansion was built 800 years ago. It's strong and it's built without any nails. The reason why it has survived is because it's the pride of place of the village. Not only is it durable, but it's loved. Now let's have a quick look at climate control. How do we stay comfortable without turning on some air conditioning? Here are some low energy climate control ideas. We can create nooks within the home. We can build a passive or solar passive house. We can use earth coupling when we build. We can cool with wind. We can use heaters and radiators that are heated by the sun. We could use trom walls to heat the inside with air heated by the sun. And we can use geothermal heating. Nooks and snugs are quite popular. They've been around for centuries because small spaces require less heating. When air circulates, it cools down. The box beds have a low roof and curtains. In cold climates, like the Outer Hebrides of Scotland, traditional beds were like wooden cupboards, and some prehistoric homes in these areas were sunken into the ground. Here's an integrated stove and bed. On the left-hand side, you can see the stove, the kang in China, and the chimney goes underneath a family bed, which is also the lounge during the day, and then goes up the chimney. The mattress was quite thin. Here it is 800 years ago on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, there's the modern version. But if you had the chance to start from scratch and build something new, you can do a passive home, which is really airtight and relies on a computer for ventilation, or you can do solar passive, which is not quite as controlled, and it allows the sun to come in and heat the house. Earth-coupled housing is quite common, especially in cool climates. On the left-hand side, we have a traditional kiva, which is not just a home, it was a gathering place, a bit like a church, and it was sunken into the ground and then had a roof at ground level, and in the middle was a chimney. The modern earthship, not very far away, in Taos in New Mexico, has the back section built into the earth. And we can cool with wind. We don't need air conditioning. This works better in dry climates, not humid climates. The vaulted ceiling, see that curved ceiling, circulates the air. And this wind tower, a really high tower, uses the Venturi effect. And as the wind passes over the top, it causes a vacuum. And so the air inside the building is sucked out into the atmosphere. For heating, we can use thermal mass stoves, hydronic collectors, and trum walls. The trum wall is like a thin glass house attached to the sunny side of a dwelling. In some countries, there's geothermal energy from active volcanoes. Geothermal energy can be used for heating, cooling, and bathing. A lot of people spend energy to feel more secure. There are two ways to reduce the need for security. One is to not have much worth stealing, and the other is to work to build an equitable society. One of the most valuable tools for doing that and getting people out of poverty is education, especially for women. Let's explore our social energy uses. We use energy to communicate, to get around, to learn stuff, to entertain one another, to work, and to trade. Crowded venues do not have to have electronic amplification. They just need to be designed well for good acoustics. There have been some inventions to reduce energy for transport, including this car carrier called the Ocean Bird. So what energy do we use for information? These days we use a lot of electronic energy. If you have a website, you can pay, as I do, to have it run on solar energy. We remember emotionally charged events better than normal, boring ones. If we attach emotion to a piece of content, we're more likely to hold on to the information. So storytelling is a way of recalling events with emotion. And knowing the history of events helps us to prepare for the future. Entertainment has the capacity to help us imagine the future. It takes us into an alternate universe. By imagining things, we can be creative. And by being creative, we cut our energy needs. In order to meet our basic needs of food and water and shelter, we have to work. And while we can, most of us work a little extra to support those who cannot work. Many of the ideas that apply to our individual energy costs also can apply to our workplaces. The trade of goods and services is usually conducted through money. Money is a form of energy exchange. Although it is a common means, There are many other ways to support the work of others. What are your energy uses? Have a quick look at your energy bills and think of one way to reduce the costs. Then check back again a year later.